Kanata is an ugly loner protagonist who had never felt the touch of a woman. Soon after his reincarnation, Kanata realizes that being a goblin is not that bad and becomes the leader of the pack and forges his own puny kingdom. Our MC, Kanata Tomokai, glares towards the moon as an eccentric woman tears him apart. The woman keeps piercing him with her knife while uttering his name. At this point, Kanata realizes that his death is imminent as he loses consciousness. Right after, Kanata regains consciousness, questioning why he remains alive and why there is an ugly green old fart standing in front of him. The old fart names him Gobro and feeds him a weird insect. Eventually, Gobru notices that he is surrounded by multiple green ugly babies and the fact that he's one of them. This makes him realize that he has been reincarnated into another world after his death. On day 3, Gobru is already an obnoxious brat. At this point, Gobru has come to terms with being given a second chance at life and is determined to make the most of it. On the 4th day, the old man serves them their last dinner and instructs them to find their own food from now on. Gobru leaves the cave for the first time and realizes that this world is different from the one he knew. He encounters another goblin named Gobkichi and starts bossing him around like he's important. Gobkichi, being the dumb goblin he is, complies. Over the past 3 days, Gobru has observed that Gobkichi is the strongest goblin around and selects him as his hunting partner. Making use of his previous life experience, Gobru and Gobkichi manage to capture a wild rabbit. Gobkichi gets ahead of himself and attempts to devour the rabbit by himself. But Gobru is a fan of the Chinese economy and teaches Gobkichi about it. After this, Gobru pulls out the rabbit's horn to use as a weapon, and suddenly a strange message pops into his brain, stating he has acquired an animal horn. This surprises Gobru a bit, but he brushes it off and continues hunting. The two ugly goblins keep hunting rabbits for fun, and Gobru gains an additional skill called escape after eating rabbit meat. He realizes he has inherited his old life skill, absorption, which lets him consume anything and gain skills from it. Despite all his previous life skills being reset, he remains optimistic about relearning them. The following day, a female goblin named Gobmi starts simping over Gobru. Since she's a gold digger, and seeing her desperation, Gobru offers to accompany them. Unfortunately for Gobmi, it rained heavily the next day, forcing them to stay behind in the cave. Meanwhile, Gobru decides to craft a new weapon for himself. During his efforts, he accidentally stumbles upon a hidden treasure room where he finds nude human women confined. Gobru, however, seems completely unconcerned about them and simply walks away without a second thought. Later, Gobru is contacted by the old man, who suggests that Gobru might be able to level up quickly due to his unwavering dedication and hard work. He further informs Gobru that once he reaches level 100, he will have the ability to transform into a powerful hobgoblin. With an unpleasant smile, the old man expresses his eagerness for the return of the village's hobgoblin and the new prey they will bring back this time. The following day, Gobmi the simp accompanies them to hunt, and it turns out she's not as useless as Sakura.
Damn!
This time around, they manage to capture a snake, which grants Gobru some extraordinary abilities like venom, search, and evil eye. He blabbers about his skills, but Gobmi and Gobkichi don't understand shit about anything he's saying. He doesn't let Gobkichi consume the snakehead and eats it for himself. On the 10th day, they come across an unexplored cave and decide to investigate it. As soon as they enter, a swarm of bats attacks them. Gobru urges Gobmi to flee while he uses Gobkichi as a shield, managing to kill several bats. After consuming the bats, Gobru gains additional abilities. Meanwhile, the other goblins grow resentful of Gobru's successes and plot to teach him a lesson that night. Fortunately, Gobru's search ability alerts him to the impending threat, and he beats the living daylights out of them. Gobmi, furious on his behalf, subdues one of the attackers. The next day, the trio encounters a chubby orc on his way to get some milk and manages to kill him. Gobru acquires more skills after consuming the orc. After eating his fill, he instructs Gobkichi and Gobmi to pack their remaining food and take it back to their cave. He had realized that the goblins were just as useless as they looked and decided to become their sugar daddy. That night, Gobru receives a message regarding his evolution and accidentally accepts it. The following morning, he wakes up to find that he has evolved into a handsome jerk alongside Gobkichi. Seeing this, Gobmi starts simping over him even more. Gobkichi then gets overconfident and challenges Gobru to a fight, only to end up getting his ass whooped. After this, the trio hunts down a pack of wolves and brings them back to the cave. Gobru allows the other, less useful goblins to eat their fill, but with one condition. They must return whatever they consume. He promises to teach them how to hunt, ensuring they can contribute more effectively in the future. He then announces that the goblins are all his comrades to use them as corporate workers who have no rights. The goblins are way too dumb to realize this and start chanting his Gobru's name as if he's Nelson Mandela. On day 17, Gobru wakes up old fart Gobji and reveals that all the human women have unalived themselves. To hide this information from the others, they hold a secret funeral and burn their corpses. Gobru realizes that all these women must have been devastated by the treatment they were getting and eventually decided to drink poison. From that day onward, Gobru dedicated himself to training the useless goblins, aiming to forge his own army and gain extraordinary skills in the process. Meanwhile, the previous generation of goblins returned from their expedition, bringing along some human women. Remembering his past life as a human, Gobru demands to keep the humans for himself, which enrages the hobgoblins. Just as tensions are about to boil over, two other goblins appear out of nowhere and propose a duel between Gobru and the former leader to settle the matter. Gobru folds him like a lawn chair and in turn becomes the new leader. With no other option left, the other hobgoblins have no other option but to obey. With this, the human women are now Gobru's property and reassures them that no one will lay a finger on them. He guarantees their necessities, and in return, Gobru demands these women to teach him human knowledge. The women reveal that they were a part of a hunting group and were ambushed by the goblins mid-journey. All of the men were killed, and the goblins kept them as hostages. Moving forward, Gobru provides the women with food and further learns about their occupations as well. The blonde siblings are both cooks and tailors. The four-eyed woman is an alchemist, and the red-haired baddie is a warrior. Meanwhile, Gobru keeps training the goblins and mocks them, which in turn makes them question their entire existence. One day, as it is raining, Gobru and Gobkichi engage in a serious sparring session, which further heightens their inferiority complex. Later that night, the goblins decide to violate Gobru's instructions and have a steamy night with the humans. However, Gobru gets wind of their mischievous plans and absolutely crushes these useless goblins. Witnessing Gobru's ferocity, the humans start crying pathetically, and Gobru orders Gobmi to take the goblins outside. He makes an example of these goblins in front of everyone by killing one of them to ensure that no one tries anything like this again. Following this, Gobru, Gobkichi, and Gomi take on the Trihorn horse. With Gobru's skills and Gobkichi's immense strength, they somehow manage to kill it. Upon consuming its meat, Gobru acquires extraordinary skills, including scaled drive, quick healing, and triple thrust. With Gumnokul's triple thrust, Gobru only needs to swing his sword once, and the attack automatically multiplies. This makes him realize why the Trihorn horse was such a formidable foe. Later that night, the red-haired baddie decides to sleep with Gobru because she is scared, and it seems like Gobmi is no longer the ultimate simp. As Gobru wakes up, he finds Gobmi sleeping beside him as well. After this, Gobru and the others discover that another useless goblin named Gobe has evolved into a hobgoblin. Meanwhile, the training proceeds as Gobru divides his army into different groups and assigns leaders to them. Gobkichi is the captain of the heavy warrior unit, Gobmi is the captain of the long-range unit, and Hobsato is leading the light warrior unit. He also wants to form a mage unit under Hobse, but it turns out that she's the only mage in the entire village. Leaving the training to the captains, Gobru decides to take it easy for a while and ventures deep into the forest. There, he encounters a Trihorn horse and decides to test his magic skills, using his first stage magic, Gaydurg, to take down the creature. As he explores further, he discovers a trail marked with blood, recalling the old man's warning about a giant bear in the northern part of the forest. Ignoring the danger, Gobru continues deeper into the forest until he confronts the red bear and challenges it to a battle. Meanwhile, Gobmi and the others grow increasingly worried about Gobru's whereabouts. Despite their belief in his strength, Gobmi remains anxious. In the intense battle that follows, the red bear sacrifices its arm to evade Gobru's direct magic attack and retaliates with powerful claws. Gobru attempts to penetrate its tough hide, but is forced to retreat. He uses his spiderweb ability to ensnare the bear, but it breaks free effortlessly. Suddenly, the bear unleashes a massive fire breath that Gobru narrowly survives. With no other option, Gobru reinforces his body with water magic to counter the bear's flames and manages to strike its mouth. Despite their injuries, both combatants continue to fight fiercely, and the outcome hangs in the balance. Even though the odds are stacked against him, Gobru is enjoying this battle as he ambushes the bear once again. Following a long battle, Gobru has finally managed to defeat the red bear, but loses an arm in the process. After consuming its meat, he acquires fascinating skills, then falls unconscious. His level has exceeded a certain level, and now he can evolve into an ogre. Gobru accepts the evolution as he falls asleep. Upon awakening, he notices how massive he has gotten and realizes that he's evolved into an ogre. He ventures back to the village. The goblins start to fear him because they fail to recognize him. However, Gobmi immediately recognizes him and scolds him for worrying her. Gobru apologizes as the other goblins still cannot comprehend how Gobru managed to defeat the red bear and evolved into an ogre. Gobkichi and the others are shocked to see that Gobru has evolved into an ogre. Following a meeting with the elders, Gobru decides to visit the human prisoners with Gobmi and the red hair, following him like some random NPCs. Upon seeing Gobru's ugly, pathetic face, the girls get scared and start tweaking. Gobru somehow manages to calm them down as Gobmi keeps pinching his leg for no reason. After this, Gobru meets the swordsmith girl, who informs him that she forged a knife with the spirit stone, which shocks Gobru, and he pats her for this. Meanwhile, Gobmi and the red hair are still pinching his leg. Gobru meets the cook, who wants him to grant them some helping hands with the cooking. Seeing this, Gobru comments that they'll make excellent waifus in the future, and even proposes to them to become his wives. Since Gobru had never felt the touch of a woman, he fails to comprehend why Gobami and the red hair are hitting him. Following this, Gobru comes across the alchemist, who was brewing some poison, which makes Gobru question the reason behind it. The girl asserts that she was making it for self-defense, but after seeing that a goblin like him is protecting them, there is no reason for her to keep it. Gobru is unintentionally rizzing up all the women in this cave. The following day, Gobru realizes that he cannot train with the other goblins because they are literally useless and he is damn overpowered. He is overpowered to such an extent that a single punch is enough to fatally wound a goblin. With no other option left, Gobru spends an entire day with the other goblins and observes them. As they are having lunch, Gobi rushes inside the cave with an injured carbuncle in her arms. She informs him that she found the carbuncle while digging up a dungeon, and Gobru heals her without wasting any time. After she wakes up, Gobru explains the situation to her, and the carbuncle introduces herself as Latana. According to her, she was attacked by humans, and upon hearing this, Gobru immediately realizes that it must be because of that gem on her forehead, which is a high-ranking material. Litana then begs Gobru to get rid of the humans and further informs him that she was created by a magician named Velvet, and that he would prefer that Gobru takes his treasure instead of those humans. With this, Gobru decides to persuade the humans and reassures the human women that he won't hurt them. Upon reaching the dungeon, Gobru instructs Gobkichi and the others to hide as he'll try to persuade the humans. As he is exploring the dungeon, he comes across some losers who deem Gobru as a random monster and decide to ambush him. Gobru, on the other hand, manages to evade their attacks rather easily and attempts to persuade them to leave this dungeon peacefully. The human adventurers, however, persist that they will invade the dungeon and steal the treasure. Gobru was keeping his calm until one of them actually struck his head with lightning magic. This pisses him off and he beats the living shit out of them. Just then, Gobkichi and the others also reveal themselves and contribute to this battle. After devouring the humans, Gobru acquires some unique skills, including assassin, crusader, and some others. He also obtains some high-class equipment as well, and much to everyone's surprise, he consumes these items and obtains some extra skills like an interdimensional box. Following this, they reach the treasure room where Litana expresses her gratitude and allows them to take all the treasure with them. Moreover, it seems like Gobkichi has also started simping over Gobi. With this, Gobru and the others empty the entire treasure room. Gobru then notices the magician's dead body and decides to burn it. Much to his surprise, the magician was wearing armor, and as soon as he grabs it, the armor becomes a part of his body. He realizes that the magician must have passed on this legendary item to him since he didn't need it himself. Upon reaching back, Gobru distributes the magic items to the hobgoblins and keeps some legendary items for himself, including a vermilion spear and magical bracelet. Using this equipment, they gather the ingredients for bear soup, and the following day, they also hold a tournament to choose a leader. Since Gobru cannot battle the goblins himself, he decides to venture into the forest. He immediately comes across a gold spider and acquires the skill Golden Thread. After this, he comes across a red deer and acquires some more skills. Following this, he comes across a massive tree where he comes across a dryad. According to him, dryads in this world tempt males from other intelligent species and use them for their nutrition. Seeing Gobru's dazzling muscles, a dryad approaches him, and even though Gobru tries to calm himself, he still gets tempted by her charm. With no other option left, Gobru decides to unleash his inner beast and gets laid by the dryad. She even licks him at places where the sun doesn't shine. After all this, he heads back to the village, where he finds out that two goblins have aptitude for magic and Hobse will be training them. Gobru also notices that the girls are acting weird towards him, which shocks him, and he questions everyone about it. Finally, the alchemist reveals that Gobru actually has a visible love bite on his neck, and the girls are jealous about it. Seizing the opportunity, the alchemist girl kisses him. Just then, the other girls also appear at the spot and urge Gobru to do the same with them as well. With no other option left, Gobru decides to give all of them a taste of himself, and also announces to take responsibility if anything happens. As Gobru wakes up, he notices some people heading towards the cave and intercepts them immediately. Much to his surprise, some cocky, good-for-nothing elves have arrived there, as Gobru speculates that things might get a bit messy here. According to the arrogant elf, the humans are planning to ambush them, and for this purpose, they want goblins to help them. In exchange for this, they'll provide them with several months of uninterrupted food supply. Despite this offer, Gobru brutally rejects them, just like my crush rejected me yesterday. With no other option left, the elves resort to violence. But my man Gobru beats the living shit out of their leader and instructs them to surrender. Despite his warning, the elves keep attacking him, which infuriates Gobru, and he brings out his massive sword to teach them a lesson. This legendary weapon allows him to reinforce unlimited crimson spears within a 100-meter range. Seeing all this, the elves piss themselves and run away like pussies.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Following day, Gobru comes across a gray slime and consumes them. After devouring around 20 of them, Gobru acquires the skill auto-replication that allows him to create copies of himself and even share consciousness with them. On day 46, Gobru creates some casual clothes for Gobi and the others from his blood clones. On day 47, Gobru notices that the elves have arrived again to get their ass whooped, and this time around, he captures all of them. The elves inform him that their pathetic leader wanted to take revenge because his fragile ego had been hurt, and they wanted to stop him. Hearing all this, Gobru announces the beginning of a mock battle between the elves and goblins, and if the elves win, he won't kill them. With this, the battle begins. The male elves were even more useless than Sakura and got instantly folded by Gobmi and the others. Gobru didn't want to kill women, so he altered the brackets and somehow kept them alive. He then consumes the male elves and keeps the women as hostages. With all of this going on, the old fart wants to get a taste of all these elves, but Gobru forbids him from touching them. The old fart, however, persists that he wants to set an example for the youngsters, and with no other option left, Gobru allows him to. Meanwhile, Gobkichi has managed to evolve into an ogre variant, and challenges Gobru to a battle. Gobru accepts his challenge and the battle begins. Despite his overwhelming strength, Gobkichi fails to take down Gobru owing to his vast battle experience. At this point, Gobru has realized that Gobkichi is actually his rival. Later that night, Gobru was so damn exhausted from this battle that he came across a weird creature in his dream. That creature hands over a present to Gobru as he acquires a mysterious ability. The following day, Gobi informs Gobru regarding the evolution of 4 more goblins into hobgoblins, and one of them even had an aptitude for magic. The guy named Gobji addresses Gobru as BRO because they are siblings. Meanwhile, Hobsi had also evolved into a half-spell lord, and her magic reserves had skyrocketed. At this point, she can single-handedly take down an entire army. Even though her abilities are far inferior to pure lords, Gobru is confident that she'll evolve into one the next time she ranks up. He then gives her some new equipment. Seeing all these evolutions, Gobru postulates that goblins' growth depends on their environment, and with someone like him around them, newborn goblins would rank up significantly faster. Despite all this, some losers from the previous generation were getting jealous and wanted to leave the clan. Deeming them as a burden, Gobru allows them to leave and hands over a mithril knife to them. Following this, Gobru comes across a human who possesses the unique skill Monster Tamer and acquires it by consuming him. Later that night, the 4-eyed woman informs him that she has succeeded in creating alcohol, which makes Gobru insanely happy. He then informs the other goblins regarding their parent generation and asks if someone wants to leave the village. Seeing that all the remaining goblins trust him, Gobru gets relieved. Following this, he creates some weird devices using his skill, which can be used as communication devices. Gobru has also noticed insane development in Gobi's skills as she captured a triple-horn horse without killing it. Seizing the opportunity, Gobru uses his Monster Tamer ability to tame the horse, and this paves the way for him to tame other monsters as well. He even tames the black wolves and makes them his pet. Following this, Gobru notices something strange with the red-haired girl. As they are eating lunch after their training session, the girl acquires a new job, and her eye color changes as well. Her abilities have significantly boosted after this new job, and she can now handle high-tier monsters by herself. Meanwhile, the human-elf war has also started. Later that night, Gobru notices some demi-humans invading their cave with some monsters following them. These demi-humans were actually kobolds followed by hundreds of undead skeletons. Gobru and the others beat the dead shit out of them and even take down the source of all this. Gobru then consumes the undead leader as well, and it turns out that the kobolds had actually made their way into Velvet's dungeon and accidentally woke up its guardian. With this, the kobolds started following Gobru as well. Gobru's got 99 problems, and this video ain't one, so subscribe so you don't miss out. Your support really helps the channel.